Dear Dharma friends and all practitioners, the patriarchs and wise men always remind us to focus on the practice. Based on the practice, it's very simple, asking questions and writing down. We choose one question and just ask the question continuously. For example, before our parents were born, what is our original face? We keep asking the questions and we will raise the doubt along with our question. It's just like we're using the koan. It's the same. We don't really know about what is the attachments, what is the circle of birth and death. The more we practice, the more we consolidate our belief in our Buddha nature, and eventually we will realize the real meanings of these words. It's just like a patriarch said that the more we practice, the more we will have the meditation. Our practice is very simple. We put all our mind in the practice by asking questions and raising out. Just like a person, a student who really pay attention to the study, they will only doing the studying. They don't pay attention to anything else outside because they put all their mind into the studying. So same for people or practitioners in this method, no matter if it's a male, female, old, young, we put all our mind in asking questions and raising doubts. Even though you have only 5 minutes of practicing a day, you put that mind in that 5 minutes of practicing. Sometimes all those terminology in Buddhism, Buddhist terminology are not clearly being understood. Just like what does it mean by attachment to forms, what is the attachment to mind, the formless, and what is form and formless come together, and what is no forms and no formless. All these questions, all these are just something that to make you to practice more and more, even when you realize what the meanings behind these, you still use that understanding to motivate you to practice and practice to sweep up all those understanding that you have. So when you know what does it mean to do the practice, you don't attach yourself to words or explanations. You never attach yourself to the dualism or any words of explanations. That's why these meetings are just like a means for us to remind you to continue to practice and detach yourself from all the meanings, all those understanding. Even though we have these sessions, but practitioners sometimes they still attach themselves to words, still attach themselves to explanations instead of going back to themselves and practice and understand their own mind. So the reminder is necessary for those people who still have attachments to words, to meaning, to understanding. Just go back to the practice and continue to practice. The practice of patriarch Zen will go against all those normal things going on in your life. Sometimes it can be the opposed to all those normal daily living life. That's why people who not practicing, they always attach themselves to everything in their life, words, explanations, and meanings, understanding all those thoughts going on in their mind. So when we doing a practice diligently, continuously, eventually we will read a sutra and we suddenly realize the real meaning of those words, or we read the words from the patriarchs and we realize the real meaning behind those words. And we use that understanding, that realization to go back and believe more in our Buddha nature and continue to practice again. So now, if anybody have any questions, go ahead and ask. Misheard that.
Dạ, Nam mô Bổn Sư
Go ahead.
Mâu Ni Phật. Con kính bạch thầy. Thưa thầy, cho hỏi là ví dụ như giờ trừ con muốn cái sự tu tập của con không được
I'd like
muốn 5
to
năm
answer
nữa con
questions.
tu tập được không thầy?
If now I want, if my practice right now is not continuously, should I just wait about 5 more years to do the practice? The practice is going continuously in all activities. Your life has no guarantee that you're still alive tomorrow. So why do you wait until 5 years later to do the practice? Why you wait until you retire to do the practice? Or why you wait until you're getting old to do the practice? This life is so impermanent. And if you wait until you get old to practice, then you miss the chance to do the practice. You can see that young people die too in just a blink of an eye. So old people, young people, even the infants, rich people, poor people, they can die in any time. And people, when they make a promise that they will practice in 5 years, and after the 5 years, they still make another promise, and they postpone the practice. When we have all these promises and not start the practice right away, they will miss the chance to do the practice. Don't think that when you're living in a happy life, you don't need the practice, or when you're still having all those relatives living close by, you are happy and you don't need to practice. You don't wait until everybody dies or leaving you, or when you see the suffering, then you start a practice, because this life is so short. The impermanence is always running after you. It's just like a dream. When you're sleeping and it's going really fast. And if you still attach yourself to words, to explanations, to fame, to money, and you postpone the practice until the suffering is there to hurt you, and it's a little bit too late to do the practice. And at that time, if you're facing with all the misery, when you're facing with all those suffering, you're facing with your own death, the practice is too late. When you know about the Dharma from the Buddha, you start your practice right there. You don't wait. You don't postpone your practice. Even though as a new practitioner, you might have the intermittent in practice, you still doing the practice accordingly. You have your friends, your Dharma friends, you have the temples to come, you have all those wise men to remind you to practice, and that is your motivation to start a practice right now, right away. When you're doing a practice, you will transform all the difficulty into easiness of those challenge you into something that's normal. Just think that if you keep running after or attach yourself to words or explanations, it's just like a dog running after a bone that attached to a string, and running after the bones. We saw the dog running after a bone, chasing the bone. We said that the dog is so stupid because it's running after a bone. But we are doing the same thing right now. We're running after the bones, but we didn't know that we been doing that our whole life. So now, if we know that we have a disease in our eyes, we need to come to the doctor and find a way to fix our own eye disease. We don't wait until we had problem with our eyes. Is that understandable? Yes. Thank you. I have another question. When I'm doing a practice of asking questions and raising doubt, I realize that there's a lot of elusive thinking that going in our mind, mind. How can I oppose these elusive thinkings? You don't need to oppose or suppress these elusive thinking in the mind. That those the one that when you attach yourself to them, that lead you to the suffering, lead you to the misery, and lead you to the circle of birth and death. When you're doing a practice, you pay attention to asking questions and raising doubt, no matter all those thinkings, elusive thinking, going in your mind, you don't pay attention to them. As a student, when they really a good student, they just pay attention to the practice of studying. They always studying, and they don't try to study. They just doing the study because they are good students. They're not trying to do the studying. Like people who want to be a vegetarian for a day, sometimes they force themselves to eat veggie for a day, and they still thinking in their mind eating meat, and that is not right way to be a vegetarian. So when people they eating vegetarian and is still thinking of meat, when they eating veggies, that is not really a vegetarian. So we eating vegetarian because we want to build up our compassion to all forward all sentient beings. That's why we not eating meat, because we don't want to cause misery to others. So back to the practice, we need to do the practice continuously and diligently. You don't try to do the practice but you do the practice, but focus on your practice. There's one story that there's two couples. There's a couples that live together and they decided to practice. And then when they practice this method, they said that they're gonna make a vow to do the practice diligently, and they did the practice, and they don't do all the work surrounding the house, just like eating and doing things, cleaning of the house. And they said that that is the way that they doing the practice continuously and diligently. So they had the wrong view in practice, and they thought that practicing diligently is forgetting about everything going on in their life, and they don't need those necessities in their life. Those are not. Sometimes these people, they move to a monastery and they still have that thinking in their head, and when they get a criticism from the master, they will have the angriness or the sadness going on right away in their mind, and they decided to leave the monastery and come back to their own life, and they won't be able to practice it. So all those thinking that going on in them in your mind, all those elusive thinking in your mind, you don't try to suppress them or oppose them by doing the practice. The doubt will sweep them up automatically for you, just like Diane, who living in Quezon Monastery, he doing a practice continuously, but when people ask him, he said that even though he living in a Quezon Monastery, he never learned any meditation from a Quezon. He living there, he's doing all the activities in Quezon Monastery, even the bowel movements, the doing all the activities, but he never learned anything from Quezon. And that is all those are just the thinking in the head that he never running after or suppress them. So when you don't pay attention to those elusive thinking and you pay attention only to your practice, asking questions and raising doubt, and the doubt will automatically sweep up all those thinking for you. You don't try to oppress suppress or post them. So even though you only asking the questions continuously and have no doubt during the day, you still asking the questions. When you realize that it's so difficult to do the practice, you realize that it's difficult to do the practice, that is your progress already. Because normal people, they don't realize it's difficult to practice, and they don't want to do the practice because they don't realize anything. So when you realize something, which means you go back to your own practice and continue to practice. When you listen to these Dharma talk and you realize something, that's a reminder for you to go out back to your practice. It's not like people who listening to music, they just going along with the music and they forgot about doing their own job in their own life. During our practice, the Patriarch Zen, anything that we realize, anything we listen, anything that we're dealing with are the motivation or the reminder for us to go back to the practice. We don't attach ourselves to any of those going on in our mind, any of those elusive thinking in our mind. It's just like in a normal life, people, they have a relationship with their spouse or their kids, and they sometimes attach themselves to those relationships too much, and that leads them to the misery and suffering sometimes, and they still attach themselves to those, and they won't have a way to get out. When you're doing a practice, you will find a way to stop all those sufferings and all those misery without trying to do. Is that understandable? Yes. Thank you for your words. We're running out of time. We're going to go to Lincoln Temple for 2 days retreat. So we will see each other in another sessions.